that detention center is 604 people. They were guesstimating that sometime within our 3rd or 4th year in office that we would have to look at building phase 3 of the detention center. That our average daily population would be at the numbers to where we were going to have to start looking at building a new detention center. Well, we took a little different course of action. One of the things we did is we started looking at the way that we managed our folks who had mental health issues and problems. And we started doing what's called crisis intervention team training. It's a thing that came about in, I believe, Memphis. Memphis was the ones that pioneered this particular way of treating people with mental illness. And what it means is, instead of the jail being the catch basin for people who might be having an emotional crisis that are under some sort of treatment for a mental illness, what we do is we have officers who are trained to try to divert that from the jail. The worst thing in the world to have for everybody involved is people who suffer from a mental illness wind up in our detention center. We're not situated to treat them, even though we do have some mental health services in our detention center. They're not very good at navigating the system. Once you find out, they may go in for a very minor charge, and they'll serve 4 days than what they would get if they were sentenced right then and there for the minor crime that they had committed. And it's just a dangerous place for them, for our staff, and we're just not equipped. And it's very costly to the public. So we have started using things such as the crisis stabilization, which is the old Bill Dobbins Center, and using community providers to get these folks in. And it's usually about a 3-day treatment phase that will stabilize them and assimilate them back into normal living, and just kind of divert the whole jail thing when at all possible. So that's been very positive. We've worked very closely with the district attorney's office and taken H&I felony pleas, letting them go ahead and plead out, getting them sentenced, and getting them moved on. And we've been also doing some case management with people in the detention center who suffer from a substance abuse issue. Because when they come out after they've served 10, 15, 20 days, they're probably at a point in their life when they're most readily available to get into some sort of treatment. So instead of just putting them out the door, we actually make some calls, give them some paperwork, and set up their first appointment for them in outside treatment. So taking those steps, what we've seen happen is our daily jail population drop. It was running somewhere about 450, 460, and what it's done now is it's dropped a little under 400 people, which is great, because what that does is that allows us to keep from building that new, most expensive construction we can do in the county, which is a new jail. And then, of course, we have to staff it. You might say, well, Sheriff, isn't it good to keep people in jail? Well, the people who commit crimes, who kick your doors in, break into your houses, and break into your cars and steal your stuff, absolutely. But what we find out is they're very good at working the system. They're able to get out when they can get out and do those things. It's that other group of folks that we were talking about that might have substance abuse issues or mental health issues that have a hard time navigating the system and get into something that might move them forward in a productive way. Our jail has really increased in its professionalism, and the thing that I'll bring to you is an example of that. We have a detention tactical team that works to keep order restored in that facility. You have one person on each housing unit that is responsible for 40 people. And those folks are not locked back. They're out certain hours of the day. They're locked back in the cell the rest of the time. They're out in general population. They can come out, use the phone, watch TV. You got one person in there who controls all that activity with 40 inmates. So we have to have a team available to go in if something bad should happen, which doesn't often, but does occasionally, to restore order. We professionally train those folks to go in, avoid as much injury as possible, to gain control of the situation, make sure that they keep the other inmates safe, and the detention officer working that housing unit. That particular team went to Sadenburg and competed in the state tactical officers, detention tactical officers competition about 3 months ago and won first place. They actually beat Mecklenburg County, which is a much larger agency than us. So I'm very proud of those guys and what they've done. I want to talk real quickly about other agency collaboration. operations. Of course, we got the old MEG, which was the drug unit that functioned here for many years. We basically redrew that and brought the city back to the table. And they have been a great partner for us to work together on the issues of drugs and also with gangs. But that's another particular task force. But the Duncan County Anti-Crime Task Force, there are 3 APD vice narcotic detectives that work there with 8 of our folks. And they work a lot of the undercover investigations in this county, and they've done an extraordinary job there. And it was good to get the city back to the table and working together on those issues. The other thing that we did, we went into a partnership with Rick Davis. We knew that there was a tremendous amount of drugs being transported on the highways that year. Not only drugs, but the money's involved in drugs. And Rick and I were talking, well, we don't have enough money for me to, and they work in twos. They always work in pairs for logistical reasons and safety reasons. I didn't have enough to come up with 2 extra positions, neither did he. And he came to me and he said, hey, I'll pick this out to you guys. They work for the highway patrols, things like we draw from other agencies, and we do. They get over there after a while. We pick folks who feel like they're very well suited for those tasks. And we hired 2 former highway patrolmen who do particularly interdiction work to come out here and work on I-26 and I-40. Rick hired one, and I hired one. And we put them to work out here intercepting drugs. And in the first 15 months of operation, they see $7.2 million in narcotics and money. One particular thing that you probably read about in the paper, they got a horse trailer that had 1,000 pounds of marijuana and $1.1 million in cash. Now, it would feel, $1.1 million is a lot of money. I never realized that. I found out it takes the bank about 3 hours to count. So that's a lot of cash. What ends up happening with that seized cash is 80% of that comes back through the federal government to the local agencies who are involved in seizing those funds. So what we've been able to do with that seized drug money, now we're still waiting on that for, let's see, about $240,000 that's going to be coming once Rick takes his part back to the Duncan County Sheriff's Office. We've been waiting on that particular cash seizure for about a year now. But it comes, it's that checks in the mail thing, and it always does come back. But what that allows us to do is it allows us to be able to buy equipment, to pay overtime. You were talking about President Clinton's visit. When President Obama came about a year ago, we were able to use those funds to be able to pay our officers overtime to work that event, which basically saves taxpayers in Duncan County directly in tax money. So that's been a very good thing for us because it takes the drugs off the streets. We already know that the cartels already have listed Western North Carolina as a place to avoid. So if we can make them not bring drugs through here to begin with, that's a wonderful thing. And when they do, if we get pretty good at catching and detecting those things, that's a wonderful thing as well. Because of much of this and several and a lot of other factors that go into place, what we've seen in Duncan County over the past 2 years is a decrease in the crime rate. In 2008, we saw a 3% drop in crime, and in 2009, we saw an 11% drop in crime in the unincorporated areas of Duncan County. We've had some of our detractors say, well, the way you do that is you just don't make as many arrests. That's not true. Crime rates are based upon reported crime. So in other words, if you call a deputy sheriff out to your house to take a report for a break-in, that's listed in law as a break-in in Duncan County. Those crime stats are based off reported crime, not arrested crime. So I just want to make sure you guys know that. It's not playing with the numbers. And the UCR crime rates are calculated by the State Bureau of Investigation every year and reported at the end of the year. That's what you should expect from your sheriff's office. That's what you should expect is a pretty good degree of safety and security in your house and in your businesses. And when you send your kids and your grandkids off to school, that they're in a safe and secure environment. Some of the things we do on and above that, one of the things that I talked to you about that I was really excited about when I came here 4 years ago was this on-track program. We were talking about working with at-risk youth, rising 8th and 9th graders who had run into a few problems in school. They had a tremendous amount of leadership potential. They would be identified by their school resource officers, also by their guidance counselors and teachers in school. Well, I can report to you that we run 4 years of the on-track program and had almost 200, not quite 200 kids come through that program over the past 4 years. And we've had some real success stories with that program. It's a 2-week leadership, and I like to refer to it as a good decision-making program where we talk to kids about principles of right and wrong. One of the things we talk to them about is the golden rule. And you folks are very familiar with the golden rule and how simple that is, but how directing that can be in decision-making. You'd be amazed at how many of our kids now really have never had anybody sit down and talk with them about, well, you really ought to treat other folks the way you'd like to be treated. And we make tremendous inroads with those kids. You think they're pretty tough nuts to crack, but really not. They just want somebody to pay a little bit of attention and give a little direction. And I'm probably as proud of that as anything we've done out of the Sheriff's Office. We've got our Duncan County reading program. We go to an elementary school every other Tuesday, take about 10 or 15 deputies, detectives, detention officers. They come out, they read. We're there for about 30 minutes, and we read the K through first, second, or third grade, depending on the size of the school and the numbers of deputies we have. We really emphasize this year on our mascot, Major Mouse, and we developed a coloring book that we give to them, and it really emphasizes the power of reading. One thing that somebody made a real impression with me on about 3 years ago is there's nothing that determines a young person's success more than their reading ability, their reading comprehension level, and their ability at a young age. It determines a whole lot about how successful they are in school. So we try to place a lot of emphasis on kids learning to read, the importance of that, and probably the biggest thing it does for us is it lets the kids know that they see deputies in a little different light, or law enforcement in a little different light. It also reminds my folks of what we're really there to do. We're really about community, and that's what we're there. That's who we're there to serve. Our Senior Citizens Reassurance Program, that was started by Sheriff Medford. That was a great program. We've continued it on. We've got a lady who comes in and calls somewhere about 200 now, Scott. Is that correct? About 200 senior citizens every morning, checks on them. We have averted some catastrophes there. We've had some folks that have fallen, broken hips, broken limbs, and we end up finding out about it because of that program. It's also kind of sad because we've had several of our folks in that program pass away, and it's really hard on Debbie when that happens. Debbie Cooper's our person that makes those calls, and she's a phenomenal employee. I wish I could clone her and have about 10 more like her, but she does a tremendous job. In finishing up, before I open it up for questions, I hope you folks have seen a difference in your sheriff's office over the past 4 years. I like to tell people we're not a perfect agency, but we strive towards doing a better job all the time. As these tough economic times continue, we're going to have to strive and look to make sure now that we've achieved a certain level of service that we can continue to deliver that level of service with the economy and what it provides. One last thing before I open it up to questions. Thank goodness that we did something about increasing patrol. The year that we took office, there were 42,000 calls for service. What we saw at the end of last year was we were at 57,000 calls for service. And those calls for service had increased greatly. The good news that I'm going to bring to you today is what we're seeing so far this year, the first 10 months of this year, is that increase in calls for service have leveled out. We've not increased this year like we have the past 3. So to me, that's good news that we're moving in the right direction and we're taking positive steps to keep our county a safer place to live in. With that being said, I want to open it up for questions. And you're not going to hurt my feelings. Anything that you've heard that you want to ask me about, please do.
Van, just a minute. Since it's, this is an election season, could you just bring us up, tell us a little bit about your background? I mean, You're speaking to us like you're an old buddy, which you are, but there are others that may not know you as well as we do.
Sure. I have been in law enforcement for 24 years now. I graduated from Western Carolina University in 1986 with a criminal justice degree. I went on to graduate from the Administrative Officers Management Program from North Carolina State. It was a 3-month program. That occurred in 1993. I've worked for Weaverville Police Department, Asheville Police Department, and Duncan County Sheriff's Office. I have worked as a patrol officer, a patrol supervisor, a training